This interview was originally recorded for the Steve Hatherly Show on TBS EFM. It's exciting times for Angels and Airwaves. They've got a new single out. That's exciting. There's a new album coming out in a few days. That's exciting. Not only that, there's a bigger project involved. There's a movie coming out as well. I didn't mention the names of any of those things yet because Tom's going to do that for us in just a sec. We have to talk about his company. That's exciting. And just his views on life and the human experience in general. I've watched a lot of interviews with Tom DeLonge, and I'm really excited to welcome him to the Steve Hatherly Show. Tom, what's good, man? Thanks for hanging out for a bit.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And look at us talking across the world with technology. This is great.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's late over here. It's early. You're at the beach right now. Is it the morning where you are?
It is. So it's about 9:30 in the morning and I am at the beach. I am looking at the water. We're about 40 yards from about 50 people surfing and kids playing. And it's kind of like, this is my office for interviews.
Love it. Well, congratulations on the new single, Spellbound. It's a great tune. Tell us about the track.
It's funny, the record itself is kind of like this kind of tour de force of like what I grew up on. So this one was like, I love Depeche Mode. I used to mow my lawn to listening to like New Order and the Depeche Mode before I got really into punk rock music. But this song was kind of me revisiting those tones and those kind of song structures and all that kind of stuff. And you know, the record's a very diverse record, but this song in particular is the only one that sounds this way. And then that was by design.
This is album number 6 for the group. It's called Life Forms. How does it feel now? Because the album's going to be coming out in a few days. How does it feel for you as an artist when you've got, you know, a new album is just about to come out to market? Like, where are you emotionally when that moment comes?
You know what? I think if this was all I had, I would probably be really nervous and couldn't wait and really hanging on to what people think about it. But honestly, like now I've done so many things in my life that I've really, and I think this is a good thing, I've really focused on, I really pour myself into what I'm doing at the moment. And then once I'm done, I just kind of move on. You know, I used to like really like obsess over it like anybody would normally, but I found that to be me focusing kind of more on my ego, you know, so I've really worked hard to not do that anymore. And so now I really don't give a shit. Like I just do what I like and then I move on. And it's a really cool place to operate from because then you're kind of living more authentically and you're not really doing things for praise, you know? So at this moment, I'm just kind of, oh yeah, the record's coming out, you know?
I talk to actors and they always say that too, because I'm always curious talking to actors. Oh, is it difficult to leave one role or one character and then move on to your next one and to kind of let that go from your life? But that's kind of what you're talking about here, right? The single's out, the record's coming out, the movie's coming out soon, but you've got your other things going on. So you just kind of put it out there and then just let it be.
Yeah, and actors have to do that because they don't have any control. I mean, like, I would never be an actor for that reason because you do your art, you know, and then you have to walk away and you can't manage it. You don't get to choose the best kind of takes that you did. You don't get to choose the best angles. You don't get to edit it in a way that really like encapsulates your performance. Like, so if an actor can't just walk away and move on, then they're going to be like in the worst mental state ever because they're not even by design. They don't even have control over the art piece that they're in. So they're just hoping to God that it's good, you know? And that would be a horrible place for a guy like me to live. Like I could not be an actor for that reason. That's why I like directing because then I can kind of really make an art piece and I can express myself through that, but I have the reins, you know?
We'll get to the movie Monsters of California coming out. I was looking for a release date. I couldn't find it, but I'll ask you in just a sec. But I want to talk about the album first, Life Forms. Hearing you talk with other people, hearing about your obsession, I think was the word Joe Rogan used, but just it's a major part of your life. And it's been a big part of your life, thinking about where you are in the universe and other life forms around us in our universe. But it started for you as a kid, right? Back when you were, what? I think you said age 7 or something like that.
Well, 7th grade. So
Seventh grade.
when I was in seventh grade, I just had this like epiphany that I was really interested in science fiction and the paranormal. But then when my band Blink first started touring and we didn't have iPhones and all that stuff, you have books. These things had pages with words on them, and you would buy them and you would hold them. But I was ancient,
What are those?
just like the Bible, you know. Yeah. So like I started reading books on UFOs, and I was like, holy cow! Like this is real. Like these are accounts from astronauts and presidents, and like, you know, the guy that created Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, you know, like these are like the best of the best. They are trained observers, they're engineers. But in any case, it really sparked my imagination. And then the deeper I got, I realized not only was this stuff real, but the world is not operating in the way that we think we understand it. It's just not. So it just kind of crept into my mind along over time, where it gave me a way to escape the mundane kind of minutia of like reality, like traffic and jobs and, you know, family and going out on a weekend. And I'm like, none of this seems to really be, we're not really operating the way we're supposed to as human beings. So it really sparked my imagination. It really, you know, sparked my desire to understand consciousness and who we are and where we're going. So everything I do now is because of that. When I started my company To the Stars, one of the stories was about UFOs, and I really felt like it was going to be the first time it was portrayed in a certain way that was like real, you know. And so I also realized like I better socialize this a little bit, because if I don't, I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble with people in the US government, because a lot of it's so classified. And so I went and socialized it, and I started bringing it out, and then I still got in trouble. Like I still was like, I happen to know too many things or something, you know? So, so this obsession is really more of a life study, and then getting to a point to where like, I can really do something about this. I can change the world. I can be a part of something that changes the world or help start something. It was like kind of it was like me being able to do something for good in a way that nobody else could do. And I did it, and now it's all starting to come out, and I didn't do it alone. I mean, but the steps to get there is a story I hope to tell someday. I'm just not really allowed to tell it yet, you know?
Those themes exist in life forms though, I guess, right? Because that's who you are now, and that's the music that you want to be making now.
But yeah, I mean, but the album Life Forms and the movie Monsters of California, it's all one thing, right? So it's life forms. It's really about the study of relationships. We go through life, and we're it's our wife, or it's our girlfriend or husband, it's our best friends, it's who we work with, and it's the guy that like gets pissed at you when you're driving, or the waitress that is depressed. And it's like, so we think our interactions with human beings are everything that exists, but it's not the case. When the government got into the work with UFOs, not only the US government, but multiple governments on Earth back in like the 40s, they started to realize there's a lot more to this place that we didn't understand. And then they got into understanding consciousness after that. And my partner, Dr. Pudoff, ran the psychic spy program and created the psychic spy program for the CIA, which people know as remote viewing, but it's really a program that outlined a protocol for expanding our knowledge with consciousness and being able to pull from the past, present, future, and find, you know, weapons of mass destruction, or to find, you know, people that were like kidnapped by some kind of terrorist leader or whatever. And it worked. And the program went on for over 20 years and still continues to this day. They said in public that it doesn't, but I'm just telling you. So, you know, for me, it's like, it's not just about us interacting with people. There's an entire study of what this really is that needs to come out, that the government knows, and they just don't know how to talk about it. So I'm trying to, with my music and with the movies, to kind of create the foundation for some discussions and catch people up, because it's literally been like 70 years and they've figured out a lot of really interesting, amazing, mind-blowing things. And but people just they don't even have the ability to understand it. And that's kind of where I come in, is I think that I'm going to be able to help with that a little bit.
It's a really fascinating thing to talk about, but is it an easy thing to talk about with people who aren't kind of on the same plane as you, what I'm trying to ask is, do you get a lot of pushback or a lot of flack when you try to have these conversations with people?
Now I don't. Before I did, like you mentioned Joe Rogan, I get that all the time. That
I,
one kind of went viral. And
I got that sense from him, is that he was almost putting you on the defensive, like you had to explain yourself.
Well, and I was on the defensive because I spent 3 days in PR like training with all my government partners, of what to say and not say. And he was kind of relentless, and I wasn't allowed to say the things that I ended up kind of saying, so I was like sitting there ready to like say like I can't talk about that, but let's talk about this. But none of us really thought through what happens when I sit down for the first interview, but we do that and it's an hour and a half long.
Right.
Like that was the problem. If this was 20 minutes long, it's one thing, but when you're not leaving the chair. So I was like, it doesn't matter what people think. It doesn't even matter what Joe Rogan thought. What matters, honestly, is that like when I left that, whatever people think, hearing it as Tom's crazy or none of that made any sense, or it's obviously he's making this shit up. I got in a lot of trouble. like I was saying things in that shouldn't have been said. And it's not because they ain't true,
No, they put Galileo under house arrest for saying the earth moved, right?
I know, right? And I'm exactly like Galileo. I mean, there's no difference. Like me and him,
exactly. He had a rock band too, didn't he?
Yeah, he played guitar. I mean, like we really like, we're the same.
Tell us about Monsters of California. Give us the plot of the film.
Well, Monsters of California is a very kind of Amblin Spielberg film, but with an R rating and a lot more dick jokes. And it's got like, skateboarders, and it's got all this paranormal stuff, but it's very much like if Spielberg and John Hughes had a baby, but then like Seth Rogen came in and just put in a bunch of jokes that we're not supposed to have in a movie like that. And but the point of that movie is really, reflecting about me when I was younger, where it's a fascination and being full of wonder and really chasing all the supernatural elements around you versus really wanting to fall in line with what your parents want for you and what they're supposed to do. And that leads these kids into interactions with the government and being kind of let in on a little bit more that's out there that nobody knows, but it's done in a very adventure comedic kind of way. And it'll set up basically the spirit of wonder, and there's some Easter eggs in there, and there's some things that are said in there that are super important. So I'm really excited for people to hear, but it also will set up us being able to make some of the more serious films that are coming that deal with this subject.
This was your directorial debut, is that correct?
It is. It definitely is. Yeah.
How was it?
Yeah.
How was it?
It was hard. It's like, that's the most focus I've ever had to have for that long. I mean, for that length of time, the amount of focus, I mean, it's just insane. There's months of just like, boom, like, so getting out of that, when we finished principal photography, like, I remember it took me like 3 weeks to like not feel exhausted, like just the mental, but a lot of that I put on myself because I haven't directed a film before. So I would stay up all night long, like trying to think of everything I didn't know. Like, what can go wrong? Okay, what if the actor doesn't know his lines? What if it just looks like the lighting looks weird because of whatever reason? How would I reframe the shot? Or like, what would happen if we get there and like, the hardware that carries the camera is broke, which happened, and the whole entire day was planned on using that hardware. Like what are the things I would worry about, like when I'm in the edit and I'm like, oh, the scene's moving too slow because they said their lines too slow. And then I'm thinking, okay, how do I make sure that doesn't happen on set so we don't get, so I'm obsessing about everything I don't know. And that's what was exhausting. Now I kind of get it. I'm done with it. I'm like, whoa. And I think I just feel like this comes very natural to me now. Like after directing, I'm like, with all those challenges, I kind of feel like it's easier still than writing a really good song that stands out amongst the trillion that get released every day,
Oh, that's interesting. Why do you say that?
because not a lot of people can think a lot of people, anybody can direct, right? Like you can go and just set up all your shots and get the coverage, which is like every angle, then hand it to an editor, and they choose it all, and then you have a lot of angles. But then you kind of have a shitty movie. It's not like it's when you go to a movie and you just that's cool, whatever. They might have spent $100 million on it, but you're like, eh. But then there's movies where you go watch where it's like a Spielberg or it's like a J.J. Abrams or a Chris Nolan, where like you leave and you're like, whoa, like that like made me cry, that made me scared, that made me laugh, that made me like feel like I was on a ride. Well, that's somebody that can think multidimensionally about their art project. Directing is you have to have, you know, something written on paper that's a good story, that really is a moving story. Then you have to have actors that you choose that can deliver those lines, human performance that is convincing. Then you got to take, you know, get a cinematography that captures it in a way that it's a beautiful picture, but yet the camera is moving and reacting to the emotion. So the audience feels through the camera, you know, like what's happening. For example, if someone's angry, you put the camera low to look up at them so they look like they're really big, you know, like on screen. It makes you feel like the guy is towering over you. So you got to think things like that. And then you got to find an editor that finds the correct pacing. Does it feel like a Stanley Kubrick movie where it's like meditative, or does it feel like J.J. Abrams, where it's really fast cuts? And then you got to score it. And then there's this whole music component and sound design, you know, so like there's so many things that have to come together and fit like Tetris. And it's hard to do that unless you have the mind that can be scattered and crazy enough to put those pieces together when you're laying in bed. And I think my mind is made for that. I think it works for me. You know, I write a lot of songs without even playing guitar. I just lay there thinking about what my hands are doing on the guitar and what the sound that's making and what kind of melodies would come out. You know, it's interesting. I'm very much able to do those types of things. So I find a lot of comfort in the directing thing because I think I really get it, you know?
It's uncommon, I think, unless I don't know about it, but for an artist to do an album and then have a movie come out as part of the same project, that's pretty rare, I think. But what makes you want to do that type of thing?
Well, it started because when Blink broke up first, I knew that I would never be able to do that again. I was like, that's like lightning in a bottle. So let's do something different that could be just as ambitious in a different way, and just as challenging, but in a different way, or more challenging in a different way, whatever. So it was really just me putting together the pieces of a pie that were different than the pieces that were in that pie, you know? And what I came to was less releases, but more ambitious releases, you know? And rather than doing something kind of more like surface level, where it's just a really good hook and you whistle it and sing it, it's more like real depth of the themes and consequences of an entire art project. So that's kind of where my mind was going. Is also too, like, I was like, the same computer that you have in your living room, you can write a book, make a comic book, you can make a movie, and you can make an album, and you can write a script. You know, it's like you could do everything on this one little box that it's called an Apple computer or whatever, not a Microsoft. It's got to be an Apple. And that's where I see it going. That's where I saw this a decade ago, 15 years ago, where I believe those are going to be the artists in the future. They were like one person that came out with this crazy concept. They're not just one dimensional. I play guitar and I write songs. That's not that exciting because we've have a lot of those. You know, it's more exciting when an artist comes out like Banksy, you know, and then just does something like, whoa, like we've all seen vandalism, but this is like smart vandalism. This is great, you know? So when someone does something different, that's when art really shines, you know, and that's what I'm trying to do.
I'm getting the sense, this is the first time that I've ever met you, but I'm getting the sense that you're really experiencing a level of perhaps artistic freedom, maybe even for the first time in your life, that you haven't had before. Would that be accurate?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I'm probably the only guy. If you look at my life path, it's crazy. Like, I just have always done things I shouldn't, and I've always done things that are challenging artistically, and I've always done them pretty well, but I've gotten better with those things over time. And I've gotten really good at being unpredictable, and that's kind of, I mean, even to a fault. I mean, for years, everyone thought I was crazy. He quit Blink to go chase aliens. He has these ideas. He's working with people from the US government, like, well, like anybody that really knows me knows that I'm a pretty clever guy. I'm a smart guy. I'm not stupid. I don't go off and do things that would hurt my family or hurt my career for like no reason. I'm pretty smart with big decisions. So when people don't understand me or whatever, like I kind of go, you will later. And so I'm at this point now where I've done so much that I like, big feature films, rock and roll on a big level, working with all my partners and stuff, and getting the US government to start releasing all this information and the task force and briefing, getting all the meetings set up. Our company set up all the briefings at the Senate and the Congress and the White House. We helped initiate the UFO UAP task force. And there's still stuff happening right now that I can't discuss, but it's major. And it's like, so I'm kind of like, I feel really confident. I'm like, I know what I'm doing, and it's only going to get bigger and better from here.
It's wild, isn't it? I mean, let's talk about it right now. Let's talk about your company, To the Stars. Well, first of all, tell us what it is before I can ask a few questions about, working with the U.S. government on things that the average American or the average citizen of the world doesn't know about. But first, just give us a brief overview of the company, if you could.
Well, To the Stars started as a production company because Angels and Airwaves, my band, wanted to make movies, but it's really hard. So we created a little production company to handle, selling the products and getting getting the books written and all this different stuff. One of the stories was about UFOs. It was a story called Secret Machines. And that is when that came out, right before it came out is when I made a bunch of inroads and took the time to use my celebrity, if you will, to get into places where I could start pitching lightly some ideas that no one wanted to hear, frankly. But the ideas were pretty good. And then those friendships grew into a group of people that really supported what I was trying to achieve. But it was tricky because so much of it was really classified, but I already knew the classified stuff just by putting pieces together and patterns together over 2 decades. So I didn't need that info. I didn't need to hit them up for classified information. Mine was more like large brushstrokes about the who, what, where kind of thing that deals with the UFO phenomenon. And so we're doing that, but it looked like I was given a lot of classified information. So other places in the US government quickly got involved to try to figure out if I was Ed Snowden or if I was like just some smart kid. Thank God I was just some smart kid. But what happened from those conversations was it was perfect timing for all these other people to come out and say, we want to jump on board with you and get this done. So I have this little production company for Angels and Airwaves that now became To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science. And then it was like, one of the heads of the CIA and then the head physicist of the UFO program at the Pentagon, they joined the company. Then the program director from that worked at the DNI, the Department of National Intelligence, and he came down and they all like joined my company. And then the second or third command at Lockheed Martin Skunk Work. I mean, just the people were insane. And then we brought out the first like declassified videos of UFOs ever from the Pentagon. And we had material we actually had like 15 pieces of different crashes all over the place. But some of them were like not what we thought they were, but some of them were like, wow, these are really anomalous and important and highly engineered and makes no sense. So currently that's what's under contract with the US government, certain places. But in any case, so what happened really is it started from my band Angels wanting to make music and art about like bettering the way you view yourself, the way you view the world, who we really are, and why we're where we're at today. And that made me want to tell those stories, which I knew had to do with UFOs and religion, government secrecy, and consciousness. Then the guys all came out and joined the company because that is what UFOs are all about. And they understood that I had that knowledge. And they also understood that I had the ability, because I've been running companies on the side forever, because we never thought Blink would get big in the first place. So we were like skate company, surf company, but Blink did get big. So I just ended up being this guy that had a lot of balls to do anything, but also understood business and also understood mainstream art. And so I was like the perfect guy at the perfect time with the perfect plan, you know? And so these people came out of the shadows and joined it, and here we are. And so now disclosure, the big D word, like the unveiling of what all this is and what we've known and why and how, and that's all starting. And I literally am the guy that started all of it, and it's going to change the world. But I don't say that here, by the way, where I'm like, oh, I get credit, because I couldn't have done this by myself. My partners have been going at the highest level from To the Stars and briefing the highest levels of the CIA and the ODNI and the DOD, just to make sure that it couldn't happen unless everyone's in lockstep, to make sure that we don't step on people's toes and do something that's inherently bad, because there are some things that go along with this subject that are very, very big national security issues. And so, and it's not for a dumb reason. It's not for conspiracy. It just is, you know? So amazing. It just has to be done the correct way.
Well, I got a message from the label that we got to wrap up, Tom. I feel like we just got started here. We're on level
every
2.
interview I do.
I know, right? If we could arrange a part 2 for this, I'd absolutely love it. But just before we wrap up, I want to know your favorite song off of Life Forms that's coming out. Mine's Euphoria so far. Obviously, I haven't heard the whole album yet, but do you have one that stands out for you?
Gosh, Euphoria is a good one. It's either that one or the first song on the record called Time Bomb. I think both those songs are really good, like mix of where I've come from and where I've arrived. It's kind of like it shows both those worlds. And so I think people are going to really like this record if they give it a shot, if they like my kind of melodic sensibility, I guess.
Angels and Airwaves new album is called Life Forms. It's coming out in the next few days. The new single is called Spellbound, but other singles from the record have already been released already. The movie's Monsters of California. Is there a release date yet for that, Tom?
That's probably going to be after the holidays, like spring or something is what I'm thinking. But premiere's probably right around holidays is what I'm hoping.
Cool. And you guys are going touring soon. You're doing the States. You're doing Europe early next year.
2 weeks. Yeah, we leave in 2 weeks. So I better start practicing is all I'm thinking right now at some point.
You got to get over to Korea at some point so we can continue this conversation. Tom DeLonge from Angels and Airwaves, congratulations on everything that you've got going on, including the stuff with your company. It was such a pleasure to chat with you, and I really sincerely hope that we can do it again someday.
Cool. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Awesome, man. You too. Such a treat to chat with Tom DeLonge. Such a unique guy, right? With such diverse interests. Everything from music and art to aliens. I could have chatted with Tom all day long. Don't forget, hit subscribe, hit like, leave a comment below, and share it with your friends. Much appreciated.